Welcome back, everyone. I'm Mayor Mike, and we're talking point. With me today, it's the United Way season, so we have Sue Wilcox, who's the executive director, and Jeff Budelier, who is one of our campaign chairs this year. Welcome to the show.
Thank you,
Mike.
So, Sue, let us start out. I know we do this every year, and I think most people know generally what the United Way is about and does, but it always surprises me every year when we get that little list and all of the new programs and everybody that you support as the United Way. Give us an idea of where the United Way started and some of the things they do in the community.
Well, to your point about where we started, actually United Way will be celebrating 75 years next year.
Wow.
So we've been part of the Stevens Point, Portage County community since 1945.
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
It's a real celebration, I think, because in order for United Way to be successful, we need people to give back, and in terms of time, talent, and treasure. Right, so it's not only their finances, it's their time and their talent. And that's what makes, I think, our community so incredibly special. So we celebrate that as well next year and every day. In terms of what we do fund 30 different programs throughout the community. And in addition to that, we run a volunteer center and a 211, and so there's a lot to it. But funding is a big part of it, but there's so much more. There really is so much more.
Well, and this is the time of the year where we start seeing the trucks parked on the side of the road, right? Win me, win me.
Right.
And that all has to do with the United Way's campaign. So this is the time of the year where everybody's employer hands out the little blue sheets and asks people to donate. Can you give me an idea as chair what that involves? Because I know you didn't start September 1st on this project, right?
We actually started last year on this, Mike.
Okay.
Kind of participating in last year's campaign just a little bit to acclimate ourselves to the process and to reacclimate ourselves to the organizations that benefit from this. The community benefits through those organizations. So. But my co-chairs and my co-chairs are Les Doby of Lineage Logistics and Doug Muncie of Key Mobility, have been working on this pretty earnestly since the beginning of the year. But there is much more involved than just handing out the blue sheets at the sponsor meetings, no doubt about that.
Can you give me an idea of how the planning process starts? Because every year we have new campaign chairs, and they're always very generous people, very good citizens in the community that are willing to take this on for just out of the goodness of their heart. There's a lot involved.
Well, I've been involved with the United Way off and on since the mid-'90s. I've been a supporter of the United Way very steadfastly through that entire time, from the early 90s, I'll say, until now. Okay. Becoming a campaign chair was an easy choice for me. As a past president of the United Way, of the United Way Board of Directors, I've seen the good that the United Way does for our community. I mean, whether it's providing, whether it's providing a meal and a visit to a homebound neighbor, changing the trajectory of a child's life through early childhood development, or providing mental health assistance in a time of need, the United Way embraces programs that work, that make a difference. And they do this, as Sue mentioned, by investing in more than 30 programs in 3 key areas of need, pillars of critical need in our community. They are education, financial stability, and health. And we embrace that and move forward with that, and we discuss that at the CEO calls that we make with all the generous businesses throughout town, or throughout the community, actually, that participate in the campaign.
Nice. So, Sue, as executive director, you're dealing with all of those 30 different programs, plus all the fundraising and all the things that need to get done on a daily basis. Give me an idea of something that, what's your average day like?
Oh, that is a great question, because there is no average day. And that's a good thing. I have to say that there is more to being a part of a nonprofit than I think most people think. Our donors have an expectation that we are going to be accountable and good stewards of their dollars, which means we are going to pay attention to where those dollars go, how we spend the money ourselves around administrative and fundraising costs. So we, throughout the days, pay attention to those items. We also have the opportunity to work with incredibly generous and kind people. I think that we're very blessed in that aspect, where each day we work with the very best of humanity, and it's a gift.
Well,
to see that.
it's got to be a really good feeling to be able to help those people that really need the help. Why don't you tell me a little bit about some of the programs? Let's start with some of the early childhood development programs that the United Way helps fund. Give me an idea of what they are and how we...
Well, and that's a pretty broad question in terms of how we got there. So a number of programs have been funding. We have many programs that fund youth. But back in 2012, when we did the Life Report, and again, we did not do that alone. We do that with the community as a whole. We really identified that academic achievement gap conversation around having low-income kids succeeding at the same level and the same opportunity as other kids. And so we decided and asked ourselves, how can we really make a difference in that area? And so we identified that we really needed to start at birth. And so we began the Born Learning Initiative, and really that is the community coming together with community organizations, and they themselves asking, how do we work together to do that? We ultimately created, and one was already in place, but a home visitation program where families are offered the opportunity to have an individual come in and work with them around child rearing and getting kids ready for kindergarten. And that's what we're after. We want every kid, every child to succeed by entering kindergarten ready.
Absolutely, and that makes the most sense, because I can tell you, even in my line of work, I am much more effective, I think we all are much more effective, when we address the root cause of the problem rather than the symptoms further down. Mental health concerns are at a core of a lot of the things that the city has to deal with, including domestic violence and everything from petty crimes and alcoholism to addiction. They all have root causes, and we spend tons of money on symptoms. And I think that's what the Born Learning program is doing, really, is let's equip these kids and the families to help them succeed, so we don't have issues later on that are really kind of monumental to try and overcome further down the road. But it's not just the Born Learning programs that you have. You help families that need help. What are some of the family programs that you help fund?
But let me say this, Mike. Thanks for recognizing that we really do need to start as early as possible and look at root cause issues. Because I think historically what we have done, not just locally, but throughout our nation, is to look at things further down. And we do need to look upstream. And so that's huge.
Yeah.
To recognize that.
I think a lot of people understand that. It's just they're never really sure how to start.
Right.
But there's a lot of ways, and helping fund the United Way's programs is one of those things.
It absolutely is. I mean, that's really our commitment, is to look at how we can address a measurable gap of an issue and look at it from that root cause perspective. You know, the other piece around mental health that we continue to support and are very fortunate because of the donor and the donors out in the community is the Mental Health Navigator through CAP Services, and they're an amazing organization and a great program, the Mental Health Navigator. The other is Children's Hospital, which provides counseling in the elementary schools, in 4 elementary schools and the alternative high school. Again, starting as soon as we can for children.
Right. So that's awesome, and I know that the United Way does a lot with helping out the young people, and especially in today's age, whether we consciously do it or not. I mean, we have 2-income families; both mom and dad are working, so we're not always able to spend as much time with the children as we were. You know, my mother, for example, I heard stories of my mother and my aunt and everybody reading to me every day, and me memorizing some of the books and that sort of thing. We don't get to always spend that quality time as much as we used to, because it's kind of a fast-paced world now. Everybody is like boom, 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 instant gratification and that sort of thing. But so again, back to the family programs, low-income families or families that are a little less fortunate than some of us. People come to me, and I know I've referred them over to you, where they just have a bad streak. And there are things that the United Way funds that can help that too. Let's talk about that.
Well, and oftentimes it's supporting a family in a certain crisis or a certain circumstance. We do have programs, and we've got amazing organizations like Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA and Big Brothers Big Sisters that are really there to work with children and the families. You talked about how busy people are. The two individuals in the family that are working to try to maintain. That means that there needs to be a place for kids to go after school, and sometimes before school. And through the donations of United Way, we're able to support multiple programs for that. So it does support families to remain strong and to continue to be strong. And the one point that I do want to make, we haven't talked enough about the fact that many low-income individuals are working very, very hard. Right? They're doing the very best, and it's hard to make ends meet in today's environment. So our job recently was to really take a look at not just the individuals that are in poverty, and certainly our commitment is there, but to look at those working families and how do we support them and continue to support them.
And that's really what it boils down to, too, is that these families are trying very, very hard to make ends meet. I mean, I know my parents were the same way. You want to give your kids the best life they can, and you're working long hours to help pay those bills just because that's life, right? It shouldn't have to be that way. Ideally, everyone would make a very good living wage and have time to spend with their families. But the reality is it's not quite there yet. So we're working on it. That life report you mentioned that came out a couple of years ago was very eye-opening and talks a lot about that. I know it's available online.
It is.
And so if someone wants to search that, they could search United Way and Life Report, and I know it'll come up.
Absolutely. And the other report that's been incredibly helpful is the Alice report. Great, Mike. I'm glad you remembered that one. That asset limited, income constrained, employed. So we're talking about those that are working very diligently to make ends meet.
Right. So Jeff, we talked a little bit with Sue about some of the programs. You said you've been involved since the 90s.
I have.
What are some of your favorite programs, and tell us a little bit about those?
Oh, golly. Things have changed since the 90s, and I'd like to spend a minute on that. I was in the mid-90s, prior to when I was president of the board, in charge or the chairperson of the Allocations Committee.
Okay.
It's now called the Investment Committee, which is appropriately termed, but the Allocations Committee. And I answer your question about my favorite programs because there are so many programs that do so much good. It's difficult to have a favorite. I mean, there are a couple that have touched the lives of my children and my grandchildren, so I have a personal bias, but I don't know that that's fair to the rest of them. The way we allocated money in the 90s was, in essence, that. I mean, we did, I think, a wonderful job as best we could at the time with the information that we had available to us. We would gather some volunteers together for about 3 weeks or so each year to review the requests for money from the nonprofit organizations that were our partners, the United Way's partners, and to review the intended use of those funds and decide how we would allocate the limited funds of the United Way at the time to best impact the community and to do the most good. And it was all volunteer driven, which was great. That has changed now to where we use reports like the Alice report and the Life report and other information gathering data to determine what the priorities are in the community. And we do an investment in the programs that most effectively satisfy those priorities. So it's not so much interacting and partnering with agencies as it is engaging with the programs that they specifically have that satisfy those needs, those critical needs that Sue has talked about. And it's over 40 volunteers that now meet year-round. Wow. To assess the needs in the community, to review the outcomes that these programs actually conduct and present, and to continue to decide where to best, I still use the word allocate, but to invest the community's generously donated funds, both from individuals and generous businesses in the communities that embrace the work that the United Way does on behalf of these critical needs.
You know, and I really like the fact that you said the investment committee, because that's really what it is. I mean, you could look at this a lot of different ways, but what we're doing is all of us, the citizens of Portage County who are contributing to the United Way, are trusting you with the responsibility of investing wisely. And just like the fiduciary responsibility I have for the taxpayers of the city, making sure that we are getting the biggest bang for our buck in the most efficient way possible, and doing the most good with what we have. That's exactly what you do. Rather than just throwing money at this program or that program, you've researched it. You have those reports that we mentioned, and so you know where some of these critical needs are, and the programs within those that address those critical needs, you're looking at the ones that actually make a difference. You are investing our contributions into programs that are going to help people to get a long-term benefit, and that goes back to what we were talking about with, you know, addressing the root of things rather than just the symptoms.
Our United Way has truly evolved to be able to recognize those critical needs, but so has our community. Back when I was president in '97, our campaign was $1.3 million. Today, it's over $3 million. That's a 235% increase in community support for the work that we are doing, and that's just impressive. In fact, the per capita giving in the Portage County community is ranked the highest in the state of Wisconsin for all United Ways that report on. So it is such a generous community. And Portage County is ranked number 11 in all of the United States in their generosity and giving.
Wow.
So it's just impressive. I'm honored and humbled to be part of such a caring community. It's just, it's a wonderful thing.
I notice that a lot, and I tell people that all the time. That's one of my favorite things about living here, is that when there's a need, there's always someone willing to step up and help out, and that's just what we do. It's maybe a Midwestern thing, but I really think it's more localized here in Portage County. What can we do to help? And that's really awesome. So let's talk about what we can do to help, and talk about this year's campaign. What are some of the things that you want people to know when they're considering making a contribution to the United Way?
Well, one of the things I'd like them to know, one of the biggest excuses, I'll say, or reasons, because they're not an excuse in a donor's mind, but a reason that they don't contribute, is that they don't believe that the money is going to be used for what is claimed. We all get so many telemarketing calls these days, and so many requests for money from typically non-local, remote types of organizations. And there are oftentimes very expensive operating costs that go along with that. The United Way is, the activities are overseen by a volunteer board of directors. Volunteerism drives the United Way in every aspect. There are hundreds of volunteers again, in every aspect of the United Way. But there are 30 board members that oversee all of the activities of the United Way, and they ensure accountability and transparency. And they are a good cross-section of the community, I will say, with respect to their engagement and caring for the community. So one thing that I would like for donors, potential donors, to understand is that the reason I advocate for the United Way so fervently, I'll say, and have for so many years, is because I trust it. I know it to be an organization that is I know it to be one of the most efficient organizations, nonprofit organizations in the state of Wisconsin. Their operating costs are kept at a minimum. The dollars that they bring in are, in fact, redistributed to the community. And all of that activity is overseen and actually conducted by volunteer members of the community. The employees, I'll say, hate to call them employees, of the United Way itself, don't make decisions as to what the key priorities in the community are, or where the money will go, or what programs best satisfy the critical needs of the communities. It's our friends and neighbors, hundreds of them, that gather together and make these decisions in the best interest of the community. And then, as I had mentioned, the board of directors, also our friends and neighbors, make sure that they are doing the proper job for the community. So, and that's important to know. Unlike many other requests for money.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's important, because it's a very good point that I don't think people understand quite enough. Having you say that, you as a volunteer on the inside of the United Way, reassuring us that the money's spent well. You have no vested interest in
I have
this.
no vested
Your
interest.
goal is to make sure you do the most good with the most amount of money that you possibly can. So I appreciate the fact that you are diligent with the allocations and the investments that the United Way takes care of.
Well, thank you for that.
So, Sue, we have had a relationship for I can't even tell you how many years. So I know all of these things already about how to fill out my form and what incentives, because you've got a lot of incentives. And I got to tell you, I think most people do it anyway, but it sure doesn't help, or hurt rather, to have that little coupon book that you have there with all of our business partners.
Right.
As a matter of fact, just last night, we carry ours around with us. I got one in the truck for me, and my wife has one in her purse. And we used one last night over at Two Harps.
Good.
So why don't you tell us what people can get in return for a contribution to the United Way? Like I said, people are going to donate because it's the right thing to do, and the good things that you do are important to the community. But we want to say thank you as well. The United Way wants to say thank you, and all of those community partners in that book want to say thank you as well.
They do.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, if you give $52 or more, you automatically will get the coupon book.
Okay.
And the coupon book has over $1,400, and we'll have more, even more, at the end of this year for next year's coupon book. So you get something back right away. You also get connected again to the community and to the local businesses in the community that, again, are being incredibly generous by participating in the coupon book. The other opportunity by giving $52 or more is entering into the sweepstakes.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, it's amazing what we have as far as sweepstake prizes. And I'll remind everyone, not $1 of United Way funds goes into either the coupon book or the sweepstakes.
Right, all donated through the generous community partners who are also giving to the United Way in other ways.
Correct. I mean, again, it's a huge statement and testament to the giving and caring of this community. But one of the 7 prizes is an opportunity to win a vehicle.
My wife chose red.
Did she?
She's already got it set.
Got it. Okay. And there's a nice red truck option. I'm not sure if it would be red, but it would be a truck or another vehicle. We must say thank you to Scafidi Motors and Don Scafidi for that generous gift. We also have, and I'm looking at Jeff's poster here, we also have a pendant that is given by Thomas Daling and Lee Ayers.
From Lee Ayers, yeah, they do that every year.
Is this okay if I go through all
You go
these?
right through them all.
A light painting and portrait by John Hartman.
Those are gorgeous.
They're going to be, yes, they are beautiful. My favorite, the John Deere lawn tractor from Simplicity Credit Union and Reister and Schnell. And then a great Green Bay Packer package that includes a gift card and signed Packers helmet from Associated Bank. Skyward, again, a 65-inch HD TV is giving. It's huge and looks like an incredible TV.
It's like movie screen size,
it
right?
does. It does.
You want a home theater, here's your opportunity to get a free TV.
What a great way to come out
I think
ahead.
we've got a
via that
47-inch, and that's way bigger than I need anyway,
Exactly, yes. Just so you know, employees can't win, which is a bummer. But I still get excited about seeing these gifts. And the 6th prize is a air voucher, U.S. Air voucher, and that's through Northwestern Mutual. So
That's nice.
really nice prizes, really nice opportunity. You think about it, these are, again, local businesses.
Over $50,000 in contributed prizes by area businesses, which, again, shows embracement of.
Maybe I'm pre-planning a little bit, and I do this with my lottery tickets too, but my goal would be to finish cutting the grass on my new lawn tractor, jump in my red truck, have John Hartman photograph me on my way to the airport going to Vegas with my wife's new pendant.
And coming back for a football game.
And coming back for a football game. I'll give the tickets to my daughter. She's into that more than me.
Okay.
So how does someone get entered into the sweepstakes?
Go online. That's one way. UnitedWayPoco.org.
Okay. Poco, Portage County, right?
Right.
Pogo.
UnitedWayPoco.org.
Okay.
They can enter that way by contributing that minimum of $52.
Okay.
You can do it at your workplace.
And that's what I wanted to talk about too, because I know we do it at the city. We did it at my previous employer, Skyward. We did it at my previous employer, Associated Bank. And a lot of the employers in the community have presentations and programs and sometimes even incentives for contributing locally through your employer. I know at the city and Skyward and Associated, they all did it through payroll deduction.
Correct.
So you fill out that little blue sheet, they'll take it right out of your check, you'll never miss it. And you're entered into all of this cool stuff in the big campaign. But I know that, like I said, most of the employers offer some other little incentives. We do autographed Packer footballs and things like that. I promise one day not to yell at the employees or something.
What a nice gift.
So tell us about some of the employers that you're aware of, if you know any, and then what they might be doing.
Well, it's small, medium, and large employer participation, and they'll do a whole variety of activities, special events, like you mentioned, incentives internally. It depends upon the organization and what they want to do. You have no idea what people can come up with special events.
I can imagine. Yeah.
I think next week we have an opportunity to judge a baking show.
Ooh, how come I didn't get noticed on this one?
Sorry,
right?
Michael. I should have told you. It's
If
the
there's
most
food.
amazing. It's at Century,
Okay.
and what the employees do to prepare their baking dish is amazing.
No kidding.
It's like the British baking show.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to contribute through my employer and see if they had payroll deduction, I would just contact the Human Resources Department or maybe talk to your supervisor or your
Absolutely.
manager and see what sort of programs they have. How long does the campaign run through?
We are really going to be going till the end of November in order to be part of the sweepstakes.
Okay.
And then we will announce on December 12th the results of the campaign.
And what's the goal this year, Jeff?
The goal is $3,050,000.
All right. So that's a hefty goal.
It is a hefty goal, but it's necessary for the good that we want to do in the community. And I truly believe that our community, being as generous as they are, will embrace this and help us meet that goal. So we're excited.
So any last things that I maybe hadn't touched on that you were hoping I would have?
Mike, Make a Difference Day is coming up, where we recruit volunteers throughout the community to rake the yards of those that are elderly or may have a disability. So it's being held on October 26th.
Okay.
If anyone needs their yards raked,
Okay.
dial 211 and let us know. And the other thing is to reach out to volunteersrock.org,
Okay.
which they can sign up to volunteer. So again, an opportunity to give back.
So let's talk about that one more time because it's important. Make a Difference Day. If you need something,
If you need your yard raked.
if your yard raked, 211.
Correct.
And that's also the number that you can call for information on all of the United Way programs.
And many other programs.
Okay,
Right.
good. And if you are wanting to volunteer, maybe you want to help out, how can I get involved with the group that's helping?
You can access the United Way website or go directly to volunteersrock.org.
Great. Well, we're just about out of time. So Sue, Jeff, thank you very much. And I want to remind everybody out there that if you see anything regarding the United Way campaign, take a minute, look at some of the programs. I think everybody in the community knows someone that's been touched by the United Way. And we're going to wait to see if we hit that goal. I hope we do. And wish you a very happy 75th next year. Until next time, I'm Mayor Mike, and we've been Talking Point.